The metallic taste of blood filled Kyle Wilson's mouth as he stood surrounded by a group of towering alien students, their laughter echoing through the training arena. It wasn't the first time he'd been mocked since joining the Galactic Academy as the only human in the prestigious military exchange program, but today's mockery cut deeper than usual. Look at the primitive Earth creature with his little metal stick. Jeered Xerax, the tallest of the Vixarian students, his green-scaled face contorted into what passed for a smile in his species, revealing rows of needle-like teeth. He brings a knife to a plasma fight. Kyle gripped the handle of his combat knife tighter. The 8-inch carbon steel blade had been in his family for generations, passed down from his great-grandfather who'd served in Earth's special forces. Unlike the sleek, glowing weapons his alien classmates wielded, the knife was simple, its blade reflecting the harsh academy lights. Combat preparedness requires adaptation to all weapons, Kyle said, reciting the academy's first principle. Even the simplest ones. This only made the alien students laugh harder. The 6 of them had gathered after Professor Threck had announced the upcoming combat trials, where students would demonstrate their proficiency with various weapons. Kyle had been assigned to the knife combat section, while the others received assignments with energy weapons and gravity manipulators. Brix, a blue-skinned Kalanite with 4 arms, stepped forward and poked Kyle in the chest with one of his upper limbs. Your species hasn't even mastered interstellar travel without our help. What could you possibly teach us about combat? Kyle remained silent. It was true that Earth had only joined the Galactic Federation 30 years ago when alien ships had made first contact. Humans were still learning to navigate the complex political and technological landscape of interstellar society. That's why the military exchange program existed to integrate humans into the broader galactic defense forces. "Leave him alone," came a voice from behind the group. The students turned to see Sira, the only Athalian in their class. Her silvery skin reflected the academy lights as she approached, her expression serious. "The combat trials start in an hour. Save your energy." Xerax scoffed but stepped back. "Fine, I just hope I get matched against him. I'll show everyone how useless human weapons are against Vixarian battle armor." He thumped his chest, where a thin layer of metallic scales gleamed beneath his academy uniform. As the group dispersed, Sira approached Kyle. Unlike most aliens at the academy, she had shown him kindness since his arrival 3 months ago. "Don't let them get to you," she said. "They mock what they don't understand." Kyle nodded, sheathing his knife. "Thanks, but they're not entirely wrong. My knife does seem primitive compared to what everyone else uses." Sira's silver eyes studied him. "Sometimes the oldest tools have advantages the newest technology can't replicate. Meet me at practice arena 4 in 20 minutes. I want to show you something." When Kyle arrived at the arena, Sira was already there, wearing her combat training gear, a reinforced bodysuit that highlighted her slim but strong physique. Athalians were known for their agility rather than brute strength. "Combat isn't just about having the most advanced weapon," Sira said, activating a holographic display. "It's about understanding the weaknesses in your opponent's defenses." The display showed anatomical diagrams of various alien species, including Vixarians like Xerax. "The Academy issued standard battle armor has weak points," she explained, pointing to specific areas on the diagram. "Especially the joint sections and the neck seal. Your knife might not be able to penetrate the main plates, but..." Kyle understood immediately. "But if I target the weak points, even a simple blade could be effective." Sira nodded. "Exactly, and there's something else most students here don't know about your Earth metals. They've never encountered them before." "What do you mean?" "Galactic standard armor is designed to resist energy weapons and certain alloys common throughout the Federation. But Earth metals, especially carbon steel, have different properties. The Academy's analysis systems classified your knife as a low-threat object because it doesn't register as what they consider a real weapon." Kyle felt a spark of hope. "So their armor might not be as effective against my knife as they think." "It's a theory," Sira said, "but be careful." The combat trials are monitored, but accidents happen, especially when Zirax is involved. The combat arena was packed with students and faculty when Kyle arrived. Professor Threk, a massive four-armed being with leathery skin, stood at the center announcing the matchups. For the hand-to-hand combat demonstration, Cadet Wilson of Earth versus Cadet Zirax of Vexar Prime, Kyle felt his stomach drop. Of course he would be paired with Zirax. The Vexarian gave him a predatory smile from across the arena. Standard Academy rules apply, Professor Threk continued. First to yield or become incapacitated loses. Both combatants will wear training armor. An Academy attendant approached Kyle with a set of the standard issue battle armor, but Kyle declined. "I'll just take the chest piece and arm guards," he said. "I need mobility for knife combat." This drew snickers from the watching students. Minimal armor against a Vexarian was considered suicidal. Zirax, on the other hand, donned a full set of battle armor, its metallic surface gleaming under the arena lights. "Begin when ready," Professor Threk announced, stepping back to the edge of the combat circle. Zirax wasted no time, charging at Kyle with a roar. Kyle sidestepped at the last moment, feeling the rush of air as the Vexarian barreled past him. He drew his knife, holding it in a reverse grip. "That little blade won't even scratch my armor, human," Zirax taunted, circling Kyle. Kyle didn't respond. He recalled Syrah's advice and the diagram she had shown him. Vexarian armor had weak points at the joints and neck seal. He would need to be precise and quick. Zirax attacked again, this time more controlled. He threw a punch that Kyle barely blocked with his armored forearm. The impact sent pain shooting up Kyle's arm. Vexarians were naturally stronger than humans. Kyle slashed with his knife, aiming for the gap between Zirax's chest plate and arm guard. The blade connected but skidded off the edge of the armor with a metallic screech. Zirax laughed. "See, useless." The alien landed a powerful kick to Kyle's midsection, sending him sprawling across the arena floor. Kyle gasped for breath, the wind knocked out of him. From the corner of his eye, he saw Syrah watching intently from the sidelines. Kyle got to his feet just as Zirax charged again. This time, instead of dodging, Kyle dropped to one knee and thrust upward with his knife as Zirax passed over him. The blade found the gap at the alien's underarm, slicing through the flexible material there. Zirax howled in surprise more than pain and spun around, green blood seeping from a shallow cut. The audience fell silent. "Lucky strike," Zirax snarled, now more cautious. Kyle felt a surge of confidence. His knife had penetrated the armor, just as Syrah had suggested it might. He adjusted his grip and stance, ready for the next exchange. Zirax came at him with a flurry of strikes. Kyle blocked what he could and absorbed the impacts he couldn't, all while looking for another opening. The Vexarian was fast for his size, but his movements had patterns that Kyle began to recognize. When Zirax overextended on a punch, Kyle ducked under it and dragged his knife across the back of the alien's knee joint. The carbon steel blade sliced through the armor's weak point, drawing more green blood. The audience gasped. Professor Threk stepped forward, concern evident on his alien features. "Cadet Wilson, control your strikes. This is a demonstration, not actual combat." Kyle nodded, but Zirax was already coming at him again, fury in his eyes. "You'll pay for that, human." The Vexarian's attacks became more aggressive, less controlled. Kyle took several hits that would leave bruises, but he maintained his focus on finding the weak points in Zirax's armor. During one exchange, Kyle managed to slide his blade between two plates near Zirax's ribcage, causing the alien to roar in pain. The knife had penetrated deeper than Kyle intended, and he immediately pulled back. "I yield," Kyle shouted, stepping away and lowering his knife. "Professor, I yield the match." Zirax, however, wasn't finished. He lunged at Kyle, tackling him to the ground. "No one makes me bleed," he growled, pinning Kyle with his superior weight. Kyle felt panic rise as Zirax's hands closed around his throat. This had gone beyond a training exercise. The Vexarian was genuinely trying to hurt him. With his free hand, Kyle brought his knife up and pressed it against the seal of Zirax's helmet where it met the neck guard. He didn't push it in, but the pressure was enough to make Zirax freeze. "That's enough." Professor Threck's voice boomed across the arena. He physically separated the two students, his forearms easily overpowering even Xerax's strength. Both of you report to the medical bay immediately. As Kyle was escorted from the arena, he caught Sierra's eye. She gave him a small nod of approval. He had proven his point. Even a primitive Earth weapon could be effective against advanced alien armor when used correctly. In the medical bay, a healer named Dr. Lorex examined Kyle's injuries. Minor contusions and stress to the trachea, the doctor said, running a scanner over Kyle's throat. Nothing our regeneration field can't fix. Across the room, Xerax sat on another examination table, glaring at Kyle as a medical assistant applied sealant to his wounds. Your knife, Xerax said suddenly. What is it made of? Kyle hesitated before answering. Carbon steel. It's a common Earth alloy. It shouldn't have cut through my armor like that. Your armor is designed to resist energy weapons and standard galactic alloys, Kyle explained. Earth metals have different properties, different molecular structures. Xerax's expression was unreadable. The professors will want to study your weapon now. Kyle felt a surge of protectiveness over his family heirloom. It's not just the knife, it's knowing where to strike. Before Xerax could respond, the medical bay doors slid open, and Professor Threck entered, followed by the Academy's weapons master, an ancient being named Clove whose species was unknown to Kyle. Cadet Wilson, Professor Threck said, his voice stern. You demonstrated unexpected proficiency with your Earth weapon today. Kyle straightened, wincing at the pain in his ribs. Thank you, Professor. It was not entirely a compliment, Threck continued. You injured a fellow cadet with an unregistered weapon capability. With respect, Professor, I registered my knife upon arrival at the Academy. If its capabilities were underestimated, that's not my fault. Weapons Master Clove stepped forward, his many-faceted eyes examining Kyle. May I see this knife of yours, Cadet? Kyle reluctantly handed over his knife. Clove examined it with expert hands, testing its edge and balance. Fascinating, the ancient alien murmured. Simple, yet elegant in its design. The molecular structure of this carbon steel is unlike our standard alloys. It has properties that our armor wasn't designed to resist. Is the human in trouble? Xerax asked, his tone suggesting he hoped the answer was yes. Professor Threck sighed, a whistling sound through his breathing apparatus. No, Cadet Wilson used a registered weapon within the rules of the combat demonstration. However, I am modifying the training protocols. From now on, all cadets will learn to defend against both energy and physical weapons, including those of Earth origin. The announcement sent a ripple of surprise through the medical bay. Earth weapons had been considered primitive and largely irrelevant in galactic combat training until now. Furthermore, Threck continued, Cadet Wilson will lead a special session on Earth combat techniques for interested students. Kyle couldn't believe what he was hearing. Me, Professor? Yes, your demonstration today revealed a gap in our training program. As inconvenient as it may be to admit, your primitive knife proved more effective than our simulations predicted. After being released from the medical bay, Kyle found Sierra waiting for him in the corridor. You did well, she said, falling into step beside him. Though I didn't expect you to make Xerax bleed quite so much, Kyle grimaced. Neither did I was just trying to prove a point. You did more than that. You've changed how the Academy views Earth weapons. That's significant. They walked in silence for a moment before Kyle asked, Why did you help me? Why show me the weaknesses in their armor? Sierra's silver eyes met his. Because diversity makes us stronger. The Galactic Federation needs different perspectives, different approaches to combat. Your Earth techniques might seem primitive to some, but they're effective in ways we hadn't considered. Still, Xerax won't forgive me anytime soon. Probably not, Sierra agreed, but others will be more interested than angry. I've already heard several students asking about your special training session. When Kyle entered the Academy mess hall that evening, he expected more mockery. Instead, he found himself surrounded by curious alien students asking about Earth combat techniques and the properties of carbon steel. Is it true your knife can cut through Thalorian crystal? Asked a small, insect-like student named Fix. I doubt it, Kyle said honestly. Tellurian crystal is one of the hardest substances in the galaxy. My knife is effective against standard battle armor because the armor wasn't designed to resist it, not because the knife is somehow superior. Still, I want to learn, Fix insisted. We all rely too much on energy weapons. What happens if our power cells fail? Similar questions came from other students. By the end of the meal, Kyle had a list of 20 cadets interested in his training session. Not everyone was enthusiastic, of course. Xerax and his close friends kept their distance, occasionally shooting hostile glances in Kyle's direction. But the overall atmosphere had shifted. He was no longer just the human with the primitive weapon, he was a cadet with valuable knowledge to share. The following week, Kyle prepared for his first training session. Professor Threck had assigned him a small practice arena and allowed him to requisition training knives similar to his own. Remember, Threck had warned, this is about expanding our combat knowledge, not encouraging cadets to abandon modern weapons. Keep that perspective clear. Kyle had nodded in agreement. He had no illusion that knives would replace energy rifles or plasma cannons in galactic warfare. But having alternatives and understanding different combat approaches could save lives in critical situations. When Kyle arrived at the practice arena, he was surprised to find nearly 30 students waiting, including several species he hadn't expected to see. Even more surprising was the presence of Weapons Master Clove, who stood observing from the sidelines. "Welcome," Kyle began, feeling suddenly nervous. "Today we're going to learn about Earth combat knife techniques and how they can complement your existing skills." He demonstrated basic grips and stances, showing how to hold the knife for different situations. The alien students mimicked his movements, some more awkwardly than others due to their varied physiologies. The key to effective knife combat isn't just strength, Kyle explained. It's precision and knowledge of vulnerabilities. Every armor has weak points, joints, seals, ventilation areas. He moved to a practice dummy wearing standard battle armor. "Observe," he said, executing a series of precise strikes that hit the armor's vulnerable areas. Each strike would have been lethal or debilitating in actual combat. The students watched with rapt attention, even those species that didn't have traditional arms or hands finding ways to adapt the techniques to their own appendages. After the demonstration, Kyle paired the students for practical exercises with blunted training knives. As they practiced, he moved among them, offering corrections and advice. "Your angle is wrong," he told a tentacled Ualian student. "With your flexibility, you can actually approach from below and strike upward into the armor gap." The Ualian adjusted his technique and successfully hit the target area on his partner's practice armor. "Well done," Kyle said, moving to the next pair. He was helping a 4-armed Kalanite when he noticed Xerax enter the arena. The Vixarian stood watching, his expression unreadable. Kyle finished his instruction and approached his former opponent. "Here to learn," Kyle asked cautiously. Xerax's eyes narrowed. "To observe, the weapons master suggested I attend." Kyle nodded toward the practice area. "You're welcome to participate." "I'll pass," Xerax said coldly. "But I've been thinking about our match. Your knife shouldn't have cut through my armor so easily." "It's not about the knife being special," Kyle explained. "It's about targeting vulnerabilities and using materials your armor wasn't designed to stop." Xerax considered this. "The Academy is already working on new armor composites resistant to Earth metals." "That makes sense," Kyle acknowledged, "but there will always be vulnerabilities. The point isn't to rely on a single approach but to be adaptable." The Vixarian didn't respond immediately. Finally, he said, "Show me that underarm strike you used, the one that caught me by surprise." Kyle blinked, surprised by the request. "Sure." He demonstrated the move slowly, explaining the mechanics. "You create an opening by forcing your opponent to extend their reach. When they do, the armor separates slightly at the joint, creating a gap." Xerax watched intently, then nodded. "Clever, simple but clever." As the training session continued, more students arrived, drawn by word of mouth. Even Professor Threck made an appearance, observing silently from the back of the arena. By the end of the session, Kyle was exhausted but satisfied. He had successfully shared Earth combat techniques with alien students who had previously dismissed them as primitive. As the students filed out, Weapons Master Clove approached Kyle. "Impressive session, Cadet Wilson. Thank you, Weapons Master. Your techniques are unrefined by our standards but effective. There is wisdom in preserving such knowledge." Kyle wiped sweat from his brow. "My great-grandfather used to say that the simplest tools often prove the most reliable." A wise perspective, Clove agreed. "The Academy has decided to incorporate Earth combat methods into our standard curriculum. You will assist in developing this program." Kyle couldn't hide his surprise. "Me? But I'm just a first-year cadet." "You possess knowledge others lack. That makes you valuable regardless of your rank." After Clove departed, Sierra approached, having watched the entire session from the sidelines. "Congratulations," she said. "You've changed Academy training policy." "That's unprecedented for an exchange student." Kyle shook his head, still processing the news. "All because they laughed at my knife." "Sometimes it takes an outsider to reveal blind spots," Sierra said. "The Federation has relied on energy weapons and advanced technology for so long that we forgot the basics." "I still don't understand why my knife cut through the armor so easily," Kyle admitted. "It's just carbon steel." "It's not about the material alone," Sierra explained. "Our armor is designed with specific threats in mind: plasma, energy beams, certain alloys. Earth metals have different properties that our defensive systems weren't calibrated for. It's a vulnerability no one considered important until you demonstrated otherwise." In the weeks that followed, Kyle's position at the Academy changed dramatically. He was no longer just the human exchange student, but an instructor with valuable knowledge to share. Students who had once mocked him now sought his advice on combat techniques. Even Xerax's attitude shifted from outright hostility to grudging respect. During a joint training exercise, the Vixarian actually requested to be paired with Kyle. "Your knife techniques," Xerax said during a break in the exercise. "They're effective. I've incorporated some into my own training." Coming from Xerax, this was high praise indeed. The Academy's research division began studying Earth metals and developing new armor composites that could resist them. Kyle was consulted regularly, bringing his practical experience to complement their theoretical knowledge. "The carbon-iron bond structure is fascinating," explained Dr. Nexer, the head of materials research. "It interacts with our standard armor alloys in unexpected ways. We're developing a new composite that should be resistant to both energy weapons and physical blades." Kyle examined the prototype armor plate Dr. Nexer presented. "It looks impressive, but every defense has weaknesses." Dr. Nexer's eye stalks bobbed in agreement. "True, which is why we need people like you to test them." 3 months after his infamous combat demonstration, Kyle stood before the Academy's graduation ceremony for senior cadets. Although he was only a first-year student, he had been invited to attend as a special guest. Academy Director Vrall, a towering figure with crystalline features, addressed the graduating class. "As you take your places in the Galactic Defense Forces, remember the lessons of adaptability and openness to different approaches. What seems primitive may contain wisdom we have forgotten." The director's gaze found Kyle in the audience. "Cadet Wilson's Earth knife reminded us that diversity of thought and technique strengthens us all. This is the true purpose of our exchange programs, not merely to teach others our ways, but to learn from theirs as well." After the ceremony, Kyle found himself surrounded by senior cadets eager to discuss Earth combat techniques before they departed for their assignments throughout the galaxy. "Will you write a manual?" asked a graduating Florian cadet. "Something we can reference when we're in the field." "The Academy is already working on one," Kyle replied. "I'm contributing to several chapters." As the crowd dispersed, Kyle felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned to find Sierra, looking formal in her ceremonial Academy uniform. "They're talking about expanding the Earth exchange program," she said. "Bringing more human cadets next year," Kyle smiled. "Good, the more perspectives, the better." "All because you stood your ground with that knife of yours," Sierra said. "Sometimes the oldest tools teach the newest lessons." Kyle's hand went to the knife at his belt, his great-grandfather's carbon steel blade that had changed the Galactic Academy's approach to combat training. What had once been mocked as primitive was now recognized as valuable. "I never expected this outcome when I joined the exchange program," Kyle admitted. "I thought I was here to learn, not to teach." "The best exchanges work both ways," Sierra replied. "That's how progress happens." In the Academy's main hall, a new display case had been installed. Inside was a replica of Kyle's knife, alongside information about Earth combat techniques and the importance of diversified training. Beneath it, a simple inscription read, "What appears primitive may contain wisdom we have forgotten." Kyle stood before the display, reflecting on how quickly things had changed. From being mocked for his primitive weapon to helping reshape Academy training, his journey had been unexpected but profoundly satisfying. As new cadets gathered around the display, pointing and discussing the Earth knife with interest rather than derision, Kyle realized that this was just the beginning. The exchange of knowledge between Earth and the wider galactic community would continue to evolve, with each side learning from the other's strengths. His great-grandfather would have been proud to know that his combat knife, a simple tool of carbon steel, had bridged the gap between Earth and the stars, proving that even the oldest technologies could still have a place in the most advanced societies. And whenever new alien students might laugh at human ways, Kyle now had a perfect response. A demonstration of how the old and new could work together, creating something stronger than either could be alone.